Hi. This, of course, we all enjoyed the Paris Olympics. Canada did well, and for a while there, it was a little nail biting and fingers wrenching and that sort of thing. But they came through really good in the end. But my first question deals with diving, and I'm going to look at 10 meter platform diving with respect to the men. But my question was that once, and I actually asked one of my own fluid mechanics, momentum, heat, and mass transfer professors, but I never heard from him because my email is a little iffy. I mean, it doesn't really work all the time, but of course he knows the answer. I mean, he taught us this subject. So my the question was that once the divers finish their dive, they go inside the water, underwater, and then when they resurface, is it similar to submarine, which is always floating underneath the water, but um, comes up to the surface? Is there a similarity? And I urge you for this technical portion, for the engineering and scientific explanation on submarines, to look at this website. And I will present a worked out solution for part two. Uh, on the internet, how submarines work, and it's titled "How Submarines Work," and you could look up a few searches underneath this. I don't really need to access the website. I looked at, and you have to see that the force of gravity is counteracted, is being counteracted by the force of buoyancy when submarines come to the surface. And floating underwater, there's a whole explanation about ballast tanks filled with air, which keep the submarines going. And please read again because I think my understanding is right because I used it here in my own, and I almost matched numbers. So, but I don't know exact pinpoint precision um, numbers for certain things. These are all approximated numbers. Anyways, to compare the two, divers and submarines, uh, uh, you would have to first look at Newton's second law on the force of momentum. And I remember, so Newton's second law says M1 V2 is equal to M2 V1. And where V1 is the velocity of the diver, and how he hits the water, and that's typically about 15.65 meters per second. This can be averaged, and his weight I took as 70 kilos. All right, and in the water, once he hits the water, till then he's all right. It's maybe a little wet, but it dries up, right? I mean, it's not dripping. They're not dripping when they go on to make their dive. So wet cloth adds to the weight. And the velocity 2 is, and so velocity 2 after is G, gravitational acceleration due to gravity, 9.8 meter per second. And I took it as a velocity. I did not take it as acceleration due to gravity. All right, so that, and maybe I could have done a time here, 1 second, and then that adds up, right? Multiplied by 1 second will give you the velocity. They take about a second or maybe a second and a half to that's so slow speed. So, anyways, A J dishcloth. I weighed a J dishcloth with, I'm afraid, a kitchen balance, well, weighing balance, small kitchen balance, and a dry dishcloth is about 8.33 gram. And look at the weight. And dishcloth, J dishcloth absorbs water, and I wet it, but it doesn't drip water, right? It's quite good that way. It wasn't dripping water. Whereas these swimsuits, so the men and women, they drip water. And weighs, and the wet dishcloth, J dishcloth, weighs 56.25 gram. And so the equation would be M1V2, which is 70 multiplied by 9.8, is equal to 70 plus 200 grams. I just approximated it. This is by no way accurate. Multiplied by 15.65 meter per second. And then let's go to my Excel worksheet and open my file. Olympics in Paris 2024. So assuming the diver hits the surface at 15.65 meters per second, but decelerates to about the flotation velocity for about 2 seconds before swimming to the surface. Well, I said about flotation velocity. He hits the surface and then he goes underneath the water. So you considering that. So this is 70 multiplied by 9.8 is 686. And the second half, M2V1, 70.2 multiplied by 15.6, multiplying 15.65 minus 9.8 by 2. So I would have to consider another addition for V1. So that those are two portions. Those are two portions. M1V2 is pretty straightforward. You would take acceleration due to gravity and multiply by a second, and that would give you 70 multiplied by 9.8, which is 686. And that would be, why don't I write down? That might make it easier. Or maybe this portion, next portion I will write down. I have a board and a marking pen. Next portion is, so 70 plus 200 grams, 70.2 kilos, multiplied by 15.65. This is pretty much standard velocity of divers, which is, I think, translates to 30 miles per hour or something. You will have to check on this. I haven't made a note of this. 30 miles per hour or something. So look, 30 miles per hour. I mean, that's like the speeding limit on many school zones and other places. So that's pretty, fast. And that's a car speed limit. So 15.65 minus 9.8 divided by 2, I think. Flotation velocity is that, or multiplied by 2, 9.8 multiplied by 2. Or what did I do here? 9.8 divided by 2. Yeah. Now, so 15.65 minus 9.8 divided by 2. And this term multiplying 700.2 kilos is pretty close. You get a pretty good match. The match I got was, let's go back here, was 696.47 and 686. Yeah, 696.47 and 686. So that was a pretty good match. And so that's one part of the whole problem. The other problem can be solved by Navier-Stokes equations of motion. All right, so these are very in rectangular coordinates. You have to get all these precisely in chemical engineering. Well, I'm a little, chemical engineerist because other engineering areas are not quite up to par, but we love computer science and electronics and other areas because I have a C programming certificate in chemical engineering. Sorry, so computer science programming. So the Navier-Stokes equations, I will show you, look like these. All right, the equation of motion and closer. And I would be considering just the y component. And this would be with respect to acceleration and velocity, and in terms of velocity, and this is shear stress. So y component. So y component, the only relevant terms are, most of them go out of the window because they're either very minimal, very minuscule, and don't really matter in the bigger perspective because the rest of the numbers are quite large. So here, so and I consider the pike position, y direction is 10 meters, x direction is about a meter from the bore. You can go too close to the bore, so about a meter. And then pike position, I had to do a scalar on my computer screen. So pike, that was about 1.375 meter angle with respect to the 10 meter scale on the computer. So that was a simple ratio. So those three you need to take, and you would have y component rho. Rho is density of air. And it took me a little while to figure out these things. Trial and error. You can't just go to the right answer immediately. And so del Vy by del T. Vy, we have it easy. Internet, 15.65 meter per second. By del T, it was about, del T was about, I timed it. I timed the dive, and it was about 3 seconds. Was it about 3 seconds? Yeah, 3 seconds. It was about 3 seconds. So that's one term plus Vx. So Vx, of course, is again 1 meter, and the first term, and to begin the dive from the x direction is about a second. So 1 by 1, and del Vy by del x. So we get 15.65 by 1 plus Vy. We have, I relax, 15.65 del Vy by del y. So this is a numerical solution. All right, your quantitative method, it would be fascinating. You could do a numerical integration through Excel, all right, point one, and see if you match it. It's a nice exercise. It's actually a thesis or even a master's level engineering course, I think. So Excel would multiply, but you need to set up the equation. I gave you the trick. So del Vy by del y. So again, 15.65 by 10, and then plus z, which is 1.375. I told you the pike angle, and del Vz by del z. So no, again, del Vy. Del Vy, I should have gotten my magnifying glass. All these products, they have a sixth sense. If you paid for them, these products, they're living beings. They expect you to use them. So all of a sudden, I buy this product and I could read really well, and I'm fishing my magnifying glass, which is not very expensive, but looking through it, etc. Anyway, del Vy. So del plus of Vz is 1.375, and it's about 1.5 seconds, the pike, half the amount needed, half the amount of time needed to complete the, all the somersaults and etc. So 1.5. So 1.375 by 1.5. And then del Vy, 15.65. By del Z, 1.375 again. And that value comes up to 58.18247. So that's your left hand side. All right, now we Stokes. Second hand side, um, minus the pressure by del Y plus shear stress term plus rho gy, but rho gy is buoyancy, and that is you need to see Archimedes principle for it, which is Archimedes says volume of the of the body, or the water. It's the same thing. It displaces the amount, the body weight of the body displaced, etc. By what the splash. And sometimes they say the smaller the splash, how maybe the thinner person. I think it's a good dive because really small people make these good dives. I think because the amount of, but I don't know, I'm not an expert diving commentator, but I'm an engineer. And so if the person is a little heavier, then a more splash. The expert dive is smaller splash, but then Archimedes' principle says equal amount of water is displaced. So that's one aspect to consider to you CBC sports commentators and all those out there, ABC, NBC, and of course Paris, whoever was there, but I can't talk French. Here, my son does. My son does beautifully. He went to a private school, so he talks French really. He even has the accent. He does not find my jokes funny. French, I think I've said this before. French, and he says ha 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 and everything. But anyways, coming back is buoyancy, which is volume multiplied by rho multiplied by the height, I think, which is volume. Volume is again volume. Density is mass by volume. So which means that volume is a mass by density. So density goes out. Mass multiplied by g, which is interesting. Force of mg is weight or force of gravitation. Yeah. So anyways, and this the Archimedes principle I looked up. I've forgotten. Chem Libre text. So going back, the shear stress term is negligible. So I have to see. Okay. Okay, shear stress term is negligible. All right, and so I ended up getting left-hand side 58.18247 and the right-hand side as 686 because the pressure term, and I'll come to what else I did, and that was quite intelligent. If you're going to pass this off as your thesis with some additional work, you have to attribute a lot of it to me. So minus del P is minus of 2 atmosphere minus 1. 1 atmosphere is added up once. So continuing with the second portion, which is Newton's second law of motion and combining. All right. So some, which would be, so the right hand side is 686. And as I said, the left-hand side is 58.18247 with the Navier-Stokes equations left-hand side. And what is here, I've matched, and the right-hand side is 686. And I will just write this down. Okay, we come back to the earlier portion of the calculation. Earlier portion of the calculation, we remember Newton's second law of motion, we matched m1v2 is equal to m2v1, and m2v1 was the wet swimsuit plus the body of mass of the diver multiplied by 15.65 minus 9.8 by 2. So that is 754.65, and that has to be considered. So 754.65 minus 58.18, the left hand side will give you a close answer to the right hand side, 696.47, 686. Remember, Navier-Stokes equation does not lie, but this is two fluid system. There's air and then there's water. So that's not a complete match. All right, so this is the net force, and it comes pretty close to the force of buoyancy. And that was my first portion. Next portion is the high jump. And I have to tell you about the funny portion of my high jump. The question, which was here, would be, well, men will not find it funny, but all these Olympic swimmers, in high jump, I'll go to the uh, uh, and all I said was that Ethan Katzberg, the hammer throw winner for Canada, gold medalist, and the women, Cameron Rogers, both had rotational acceleration. And would this work for Newton's laws? I guess it would. I mean, but that's a good question though, because eh, as far as I've always been taught, M1 M2 M1 V2 is equal to M2 V1. So it should work, but it should work because V by R is equal to omega. So that's an exercise for you. You could do the hammer throw. So on my Facebook page, you will see my calculations for the previous time of Andre deGrasse's gold medal win, thrust plus acceleration plus velocity giving rise to a constant. And I came up with the right speed. You will have to watch the video carefully and stop and measure, etc. So then you will get the right answer. And um, my joking question to I was jesting, of course, to my professors was that would the act of sexual intercourse, which is 7 minutes, plateau off, or could it go to other higher time limits with Newton's force of momentum, etc. All right, but that is could be a practical experimentation to do if you're celebrating all your medal wins or even otherwise. But so, Andre deGrasse this time didn't have the perfect Olympics he had the previous two times. But the relay was fantastic. They all won, all the four of them, Canadian sprinters. So that's a question. Anyways, coming back to high jump, I first thought it could be a simple equation. Again, this is my God, this is basic physics. What were those equations of motion? I think, yeah, H equals ut plus half gt square. That did not work. I did not get the right answer. So then there's a website which is very helpful, but it does not give the right answer. Olympic diving physics, swimming science bulletin. I looked that up too. Archimedes principle, high jump. Okay, mathematics. This is it's an article on it's a math professor who's spoken, John D. Barrow. He's a professor of mathematical sciences and director of the Millennium Mathematics project at Cambridge University. Remember, for those of you familiar to my LinkedIn webpage, I've solved the Millennium problems. No, didn't get even a penny. All those millions promised. But anyways, it was fun. Then, millions of fun. Like my child son had said, hundreds of soup. in Canada, soup is saru. So that for some reason that day he wanted soup. So he had said hundreds of saru. So that way, hundreds of fun, millions of fun. So I had millions of fun. But it would be nice. Some money would have been nice. But, the Cambridge University cheated me. Anyways, now here goes. For high jump, that's not computed completely accurate because he says center of gravity is below the bar, below where the bar is placed for high jump. And that makes athletes nervous. These things make me nervous too. All these below, always above the bar for high jumpers. Always, think positive, more, better, faster, higher, stronger, and, better. That sort of thing. Something little less makes you nervous because it could really come true, So, force of momentum, mass multiplied by velocity, and is equal to potential energy. M, mass multiplied by acceleration due to gravity multiplied by height. So height is equal to, again, G, you have this, it's acceleration units, right? So you have this extra. So H is equal to mass multiplied by velocity. And I did some measuring here, all right, which was winning height was 2.34 meter, and the New Zealander won it. Shame on me, I should have gotten his name. But what would you people do then? I mean, that's okay, I should have gotten his name. And it was a 4 to 5 second run-up covering about 20 to 25 meter. And I said this didn't go anywhere. Initial velocity was, I measured and everything, my own steps. You cover only 4 to 5 inches in about a couple of small steps they take initially. They don't take, strides. So 1, 2, 3 steps. And so here, H is equal to mass multiplied by velocity. So that was the velocity. 20 to 25, that's the run-up velocity. 20 to 25 meter by 4.5 seconds. That was the velocity I considered. Mass, I just took 70 kilos again. He seemed like a pretty slim guy, 70. But then not, if you're taller, you may be a little heavier, but average, you would match it if you took the exact numbers, exact values. And then time taken to make the run-up was again 4.5 seconds. And I got the answer as 2.3 meter. And the bar was set at 2.34 meter. Thank you. And that concludes my talk for today. And I have a part 2 coming up. And you should look forward to watching me on there. Thank you.